Everyone loves flying. Well, okay, maybe most of us just tolerate it. Waiting in line for hours before flying through the sky in a tiny metal tube is kinda nerve-wracking. Still, planes are safe, right? Supposedly, flying is safer than driving, right? Well, fasten your seatbelts, because we're about to take a look at some aspects of airplane design and air travel that the airlines don't want you to know about. Germ tube. Airlines like to say their planes are pristine, sleek, and hygienic vehicles. In reality, they're about as clean as a movie theater floor. Every second a plane isn't in the air, it isn't making money. As such, airlines really want to minimize their plane's ground time and maximize their number of flights. Ryanair can turn around short-haul flights in as little as 25 minutes, and Southwest in as little as 35, which is crazy fast. But it's not much time to clean the plane, often leaving staff with just 15 minutes of cleaning time before passengers board. According to flight attendant Sarah Kegel, in economy class, freshly washed blankets are only provided to the first flight of the day. After that, they're just folded and reused, no matter how they've been used previously. Even worse, those tray tables might only be wiped down once a day, usually when the plane remains grounded overnight. Yeah, think twice about pouring those pretzels straight onto the tray table, as passengers have been caught changing baby diapers on them. One flight attendant told The Guardian she had to use passenger blankets to clean stains, as they weren't given enough time or supplies to clean properly, and had even used them on human feces. As recently as 2023, Air Canada came under fire for forcing passengers to sit on seats that were still covered in vomit from the previous flight. So, flight attendants placed coffee grounds in the seat pouch and sprayed it with perfume to disguise the smell. If surfaces can't be trusted, at least you can turn on the overhead fan and enjoy a nice cool breeze. Well, I'd hold off, unless you want gunk blown directly in your face. In 2015, flight data website TravelMath found that those vents had a greater concentration of bacteria than an airplane's seatbelt buckles, airport bathroom locks, and even the airplane's toilet flush button. So, if you want to cool off on an airplane, your best bet is to just stay hydrated. Except even the water is dirty. Back in 2003, the EPA studied tap water from over 300 planes and found that 15% contained the harmful bacteria coliform, which is typically found in feces. That same water is often used to make onboard tea and coffee, by the way. Ugh. While disgusting, it's also hardly surprising, as the water tanks in planes are irregularly cleaned. So if you want to stay clean on an airplane, you just need to remember, don't drink the water, touch anything, or breathe. Simple. And if you're keen to take to the skies without risking your health, then you should check out today's sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game on the market, boasting over 2,500 machines, including tanks, ships, and of course, planes. War Thunder's vehicles range from the armored cars of the 1920s to modern-day tanks and stealth bombers, all of which can be altered using the game's comprehensive customization system. Personally, I love painting tanks. Featuring gorgeous graphics and immersive sound, War Thunder places you in the cockpit alongside over 70 million players, battling, strategizing, and competing for glory. Click on the link in the pinned comment below to download War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. You'll also receive a massive bonus pack filled with vehicles and more, whether you're a new or returning player who hasn't played for at least 6 months. Now let's get back to it. Safety worst. Think fast. What are the worst seats on planes? I'm willing to bet you'd say middle seats, and I can't blame you. Nobody wants to be sat stuck between two strangers. You may have also said seats towards the back of the plane, as it isn't nice sitting right next to the bathroom. And in my experience, these seats feel bumpier. So a middle seat at the back of a busy plane, that's hell. But if you ever find yourself stuck with this seat, don't switch. In 2007, Popular Mechanics conducted an analysis on the National Transportation Safety Board's data on airline crashes that resulted in at least a single fatality and survivor. Remember that while your odds of ever being in a plane crash are low, about 1 in 1.2 million, your odds of perishing in a plane crash are even lower, at 1 in 11 million. Anyway, Popular Mechanics looked at every deadly air crash in the United States between 1971 and 2007, and what they found was shocking. It seems that when it comes to survival, all seats aren't created equal. They found that those towards the front of the plane had only a 49% chance of survival. Those in the middle had a 56% chance of survival, and those toward the back had a much higher 69% chance of survival. Nice. And the safest seats of all? Well, those were the middle seats toward the back of the plane, with a 72% chance survival rate. That's right. The seats we think of as the worst are actually the safest. Go figure. High tension. It's easy to see people who work in certain professions as unshakable superhumans. Doctors, firefighters, YouTubers. Another is the noble pilot. They fly multi-million-dollar equipment and are responsible for the safety of hundreds of people. Surely only the most calm, mature, and capable people become pilots. Nope. Like in all professions, sometimes pilots and co-pilots don't get along. This is why airlines have a secret system they try not to let passengers know about, the no-pair system. Every captain, first and second officer have a list of names that connect to their carrier's scheduling system. They can then add names of anyone they don't get along with on their personal list, lowering the odds they'll fly together. Makes sense. I wouldn't want to be stuck in a tiny room with my intern number 442. Stop microwaving your fish in the break room, 442. This is a call-out. However, the Do Not Pair list isn't perfect. In 2022, on an Air France flight heading from Geneva to Paris, two pilots had a serious disagreement shortly after takeoff. While the two men were supposed to be flying the plane, they were instead grabbing each other's collars, with one of them reportedly clocking the other. The commotion caught the attention of a member of the cabin crew, who spent the rest of the flight in the cockpit having to monitor them. If only passengers had do not pair lists they could put their pilots on. Emotional baggage. If you're anything like me, you never leave the house without your essentials. Personally, I make sure to take my diamond play button with me wherever I travel. I can rest assured that baggage handlers the world over take their jobs seriously and handle baggage with utmost care. My diamond play button, no! And before you get too hopeful, this violent approach to baggage handling isn't unique. The internet is full of clips like this. More than just being the norm, though, tossing bags around like this might be the only way these guys can do their job. The common Boeing 747-400 can seat 416 passengers in a 3-class configuration. Let's assume that only half of those passengers check any baggage, and they only check one bag apiece. That's 208 bags that need to be loaded. Now let's say these baggage handlers can receive a bag, gently move it, and neatly stack it in just 20 seconds. That would mean it would take 2 baggage handlers 34 minutes to load or unload a plane. Remember that some airlines claim to have a turnaround time of 30 minutes, and you can see why careful baggage handling just isn't practical. If you can't protect your bag's outsides, well, surely you can protect their insides, right? Using a nice big lock on your zips usually does the trick. Nothing can get by this, right? Nothing except a ballpoint pen, that is. Yeah, getting through most zippers is as simple as jabbing them with a pen and running it along the seam. Once a bag has been pilfered, the zips can simply be dragged around to reseal the bag. According to the LA Times, fewer than 500 of the TSA's 150,000 employees were arrested for theft between 2001 and 2011, or just 0.3%. However, those were just the employees who got caught. Even going by those odds, though, you're way more likely to have your bags handled by a TSA thief than getting into a plane accident. One convicted TSA worker claimed there was a culture of indifference at their airport and claimed to have pilfered over $800,000 worth of passenger goods over a 4-year period. And I thought YouTube was easy money. Flights of frenzy. While you might think the pilots are the most essential people on the plane, I reckon flight attendants deserve more praise. They bring us our food, show us our seats, are in charge of our safety, and ask the guy sitting in front of us to raise his seat back up when we can't summon the courage to. Considering they have such important roles, airlines must take good care of them, right? Wrong. Shockingly, for all the time they spend getting the plane ready and helping one on board, flight attendants are only actually paid once the plane door shuts, marking the beginning of their official shift. Despite this, flight attendants are still expected to arrive early, greet passengers, check documents, store bags, explain emergency and landing procedures, ensure the plane is stocked with food and drink, bid farewell to the passengers, and numerous other responsibilities, all of which is unpaid labor. It's not uncommon for flight attendants to end up working 4 to 6 uncompensated hours every day. Still, flight attendants do get their own secret beds and rest area on long-haul flights, but where? Airplanes are cramped enough as it is. Where could they be hiding a whole bedroom? Well, they're usually above overhead baggage storage. So while you're napping in your seat, they're napping in the hollows above you, which feels incredibly unnerving. They need those naps too, as some flight attendants claim they're heavily discouraged from slouching while in uniform. Imagine working a 10-hour flight, sleeping on a flat-pack bed, and not even being allowed to rest your shoulders. Well, they might not be comfortable, but they're at least stylish, right? Those are some snappy uniforms. But looking good comes with a heavy price. In 2020, over 500 Delta flight attendants filed a lawsuit against clothing manufacturer Land's End, who supplied their new Passport Plum uniforms. The lawsuit claimed the uniforms were made from cheap materials that caused breathing issues, hives, and hair loss. Oh, and they also dyed the flight attendants' sheets purple. So clearly, only the finest materials were used. As of the time of this writing, that case is still pending. However, in November of 2023, a jury ruled in favor of a different group of flight attendants from American Airlines, claiming their uniforms were causing rashes, headaches, and breathing problems. Eesh. Who would have guessed the most dangerous part of flying would be getting dressed in the morning? Bird box. It's no secret that, despite how nervous we may get, air travel is one of the safest forms of transportation known to man. But not to birds. The official term airlines use when a bird hits a plane is bird strike, presumably because it sounds better than bird evisceration. Bird strikes occur far more often than airlines would like us to believe, and you may have even been on a plane when it mulched one. According to the FAA's Wildlife Strike database, there were 493 reported bird destructions in New York airports alone between 2021 and 2022, and even those are just the incidents reported. As terrible as that is for birds, it isn't always easy on planes either. Take a look at the nose of this Turkish Airlines plane. Pretty insane, right? The thing looks like it was struck by a meteorite. In reality, the plane was struck by a low-flying bird. And while it landed safely, the plane, not the bird, it's in need of a serious nose job. In 2023, an American Airlines flight suffered a nasty bird strike, causing an engine fire and forcing the plane to land prematurely. While no one was harmed, the fire department were called and had to deal with a very sticky situation. Oh, don't take a picture, dude. Still, it could have been much worse. In 1960, a flock of starlings brought down a plane that had been airborne less than a minute. Tragically, the plane careened into Boston Harbor and claimed the lives of 62 people. The scariest part of all this? There's very little airlines can actually do about it, and bird strikes cost the industry around $1.3 billion a year. But one recent solution that's showing promise is, well, googly eyes. French researchers have found that what they call looming eyes near runways can be effective at scaring away certain birds, kind of like a cartoon scarecrow. I can't blame them. Those eyes are just so judgmental. High-flying brains. Have you ever picked up the wrong suitcase at baggage claim? Embarrassing, right? Well, be thankful you didn't accidentally walk off with someone's pancreas. It's more likely than you think, as human organs are often transported on commercial flights. That's right, your underwear and socks might be a few inches of material away from a human kidney. It doesn't stop there either. Human remains are often transported on board commercial flights, as well as fresh organs. And while this is crazy to realize, it's actually essential. When someone on the other side of the country needs a new heart fast, what do you think they're going to do? Call a private jet? A single flight on those can cost thousands of dollars. A commercial plane isn't just the fastest and most effective way to deliver body parts, but the safest. Remember how much more likely you are to get in a traffic accident than an air accident? Well, human organs are valuable. A heart right now is worth just under $1 million, while a liver is worth over $520,000, with the kidney and pancreas going for $260,000 and $275,000 respectively. That precious, squishy cargo is way safer in the air than on a road. Well, kinda. Airlines don't want to give away tickets to trained medical staff to handle the organs. This means it's usually up to regular baggage handlers to... My organs! No! If you've ever lost baggage or ended up with the wrong suitcase, well, I hate to tell you, but it happens with organs too. In 2018, a human heart was accidentally left aboard a Southwest Airlines flight, and a study found that between 2014 and 2019, 170 organs were rendered unusable due to transportation issues, with another 370 near misses. Organs used to be stored in the cockpit, but since the events of 9/11, now they're in the cargo hold, along with all the other luggage. Man, imagine how awful that baggage mix-up would be. Yikes. Turbulent toilets. What do you do when you're nervous on a plane? Talk to a friend? Hold a loved one's hand? Well, I don't have either of those, so I head to the bathroom. Small spaces make me feel safe. Don't judge me. Unfortunately, airplane bathrooms aren't actually safe at all. For starters, did you know that the lock on an airplane bathroom does nothing? Well, it locks the door, but it doesn't stop outsiders from getting in. Take a look. A secret anti-lock. Well, what's the deal? When you think about it though, an airline door that can't be opened is pretty dangerous. Someone could pass out in there and need medical attention, or a child could accidentally lock themselves in. Now please use this information responsibly though. Don't use it to play toilet peekaboo. So airline bathrooms may not be super secure, but at least there are always enough of them, right? Well, no. The Boeing 737-800 is the most common commercial airplane in the world. It has 138 seats and 3 toilets. That just doesn't feel like enough. Surely there have to be guidelines regulating this sort of thing. No. According to a spokesperson from the Federal Aviation Administration, there are actually no minimum bathroom requirements for commercial airliners. Yikes. Better hope airlines don't get too crazy with cutting costs. I don't want to have to hold it in across the entire Atlantic. Out of breath. When you're worried about your luggage, elbow room, and whether you might drop 50,000 feet out of the sky, it can be easy to forget some of the other dangers of flying. Take air pressure, for example. As you fly higher and higher, the air pressure gets lower and lower. This is because air pressure is a measure of the weight of the air above you. The higher you go, the less air and the less pressure there is, making it colder and harder to breathe. Airplanes are designed to counteract this by keeping the cabin pressure at around 11 or 12 psi, which is lower than the approximate 14.7 that we're used to, but it's still totally fine. If anything goes wrong, however, we have these oxygen masks. These drop down whenever the plane experiences a sudden drop in cabin pressure, so passengers can enjoy safe, breathable air. Without them, drops in cabin pressure can result in a loss of consciousness, nasty headaches, and various other health issues, so they're crucial. With that in mind, can you guess how much breathable air they provide passengers? A couple of hours? Maybe one? Nope. Try about 15 minutes. Now, that's the average, but the FAA only requires that they provide 10 minutes. Still, 10 minutes should be enough, as in most cases, that's enough time for a pilot to notice the drop in air pressure and descend the plane to about 10,000 feet, which has a safe PSI of 10.2. Still, as you should know by now, if a company can cut cost corners and cheap out on safety, they often will. John Barnett, a former Boeing quality control engineer, told the BBC that a quarter of the oxygen masks on Boeing's 787 Dreamliner simply didn't work correctly. But Boeing went ahead and installed them anyway. Wouldn't you know it, in 2024, an Alaskan Airlines flight aboard a Boeing lost a door whilst airborne, and several of the passengers claimed their air masks simply didn't work. They alleged that they had to scramble around the cabin searching for functional ones, which I have to say showed amazing composure on their parts. If my plane's door flew off, I'd probably have a heart attack before the mask even deployed, or didn't deploy if I was on a Boeing. Flight pains. Holes aren't something I'd say belong in a plane's fuselage, and yet there are holes all over the aircraft we travel on that we're not aware of, like this one. Now, from what I've found, these hatches were built into older models of aircraft, like this Saab 340, so ground crews could pass important papers to pilots without boarding the plane. Especially useful, as airlines aren't supposed to reopen doors once they're shut, as it could alter the plane's weight estimation. So don't worry about little cockpit holes. But what about those windows? They're pretty safe too. Rather than glass, they're comprised of 3 panes of stretched clear acrylic. Each layer acts as a safeguard on the slim chance that the preceding layer cracks, and that little hole in the middle prevents condensation. And while regular use isn't likely to break a plane window, they aren't designed to withstand direct damage. On April 17th, a Southwestern Airlines flight experienced an engine failure, and a small fragment of the engine hit a window, causing a break. The passenger next to that window was partially sucked out and sadly didn't survive. Another terrifying incident involved a British Airways captain being partially sucked out when a poorly installed cockpit window blew out. Luckily, he got tangled up in the control panel, saving his life. He was sticking out of the front of the plane for 20 minutes before the co-pilot could land. While the captain survived, he was badly injured, suffering from frostbite caused by the high-altitude winds. As horrifying as those stories are, plane manufacturers must be improving their safety all the time, right? Well, no. In fact, in 2022, Boeing threatened to just stop making their 737 line of planes unless they were given exemption from certain safety requirements. Remember John Barnett, the Boeing whistleblower? According to him, oxygen masks are the tip of the iceberg. And in some cases, Boeing used substandard parts salvaged from scrap bins in their planes. Oh man, that's so scary. I can't breathe. And that's not just because I've got a Boeing air mask. Bumpy ride. Turbulence. Everyone hates it. Every bump, no matter how small, hits your brain, you're about to die alarm. Well, I have bad news for you. Turbulence is getting worse, and there's nothing airlines can do about it. There are a few different types of turbulence. Wake turbulence is caused when one plane follows a little too closely behind another. Thermal turbulence is caused by rising warm air and towering clouds. The kind we're interested in is clear air turbulence. This is the bumpy turbulence that occurs when there isn't a cloud in the sky. It's caused by sudden changes in wind speed and direction, known as wind shear, typically at heights greater than 35,000 feet. This type of turbulence can be dangerous, as unlike other kinds, it doesn't show up on onboard equipment, and it's getting worse. You see, as global temperatures begin to rise due to climate change, the warmer air caused by CO2 emissions is increasing the frequency of wind shear. One study found that wind shear had increased by 15% between 1979 and 2019, and could potentially triple within the next few decades. While turbulence still isn't likely to cause a crash, it is a major cause of airline injuries, as people are tossed about the cabin or hit by falling luggage. Turbulence-related injuries and structural plane damage cost airlines somewhere between $500 million and $1 billion per year. Good news, though. This is all only a problem if your plane takes off in the first place. You see, planes have a more difficult time taking off in warmer climates. This is because warm air is less dense and thus generates less lift. As global temperatures rise, we can expect more delays. Hooray? Now look, you can be sitting around on the ground or bumped around in the air. Your choice. The deal with airline food. Time to answer that age-old question. What's the deal with airline food? Well, buckle up, because answering that question will also answer why air travel is generally bad. Yeah, seriously, it all ties back to the food. Check out this commercial for Boeing's 747-100, rolled out in 1969. Yes, this really is a plane. It's almost unrecognizable compared to modern airliners. It's roomy, decorative, and geez, look at that food. Back in the day, it wasn't uncommon for planes to feature luxury meals and even piano bars. So how do we go from this to this? Well, back in 1938, when air travel was first becoming a major American industry, the U.S. formed the Civil Aeronautics Board. This board was in charge of regulating the new industry, and one of its many responsibilities was setting ticket prices. That's right, airlines couldn't charge whatever they wanted. Instead, tickets were priced according to the number of miles traveled along a route. So a ticket from New York to LA would always cost the same amount, no matter the airline. As airlines couldn't compete based on price, they instead had to compete with customer satisfaction. Thus, every airline tried to offer the nicest food, the roomiest seats, the hottest crew. It's the reason your grandpa calls this era the golden age of air travel. However, this came to an end in 1978 with the Airline Deregulation Act, which heavily deregulated the industry. Suddenly, airlines could now charge whatever they wanted and began competing for who could offer the lowest prices.
People Express flies to New York for $59 off-peak, $79 peak. A bargain like this only comes along 10 times a day.
This inevitably started a race to the bottom. Bad choice of words for airplane talk. With lower ticket prices, airlines cut costs wherever else they could, and food quality was one of the first victims. Airlines no longer had the desire or money to provide luxury meals or piano bars. Some issues we've already discussed arose after the Deregulation Act. Now, to be fair, the Deregulation Act is responsible for air travel in the United States getting cheaper. However, since then, many airlines merged and raised prices back up anyway. Still, if crummy airline food is getting you down, you can always smuggle your own on board. I, for instance, always hide a Ziploc bag of spaghetti in my bags when I fly. My spaghetti! No! Once again, I'd like to thank War Thunder for making this video possible. If you want to enjoy the most immersive vehicular combat game on the market, click on the link in the pinned comment below to download War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. You'll also receive a massive bonus pack filled with vehicles and other goodies. Whether you're a new or returning player who hasn't played for at least 6 months, on me. Well, those were some airline and airplane facts that have made me nervous to fly ever again. What about you, though? Are you still unfazed, or are you a little more cautious? Let me know down in the comments, and thanks for watching.